It's a Saturday afternoon. You log into Runescape and a stranger trades you heaps of gold and stacks of items that have been slowly collected over the past few months, even years. Elder Mauls, Sang Staffs, and more. These are merchanting items and worth more than most players will ever see in a lifetime of playing RuneScape. But this isn't the original collector of these items. It's October 2025. The person you're trading is a hacker, and these items don't belong to him. He's just hacked one of RuneScape's wealthiest players of all time. Now, he's frantically trying to liquidate the items to sell on the black market, worth 150 billion gold coins for 30,000 US dollars. The original collector of these items is RuneScape's #1 merchant. His name is Melon Merch, and he's just been hacked for more gold than anybody in RuneScape history. He started as a regular RuneScape player, but after some frustration with the game, he eventually found a way to break the system and masterminded a way to become the most successful merchant of all time. But in the present day, the legacy he spent years building all comes crashing down in one brutal moment. He's confused and terrified. He begins to run scans on his computer hard drives and checks to make sure his real-life crypto wallets haven't been compromised. He's just notified RuneScape staff that his account has been hacked and desperately asks them for answers. This is the story of Melon Merch's rise, the secrets that made him RuneScape's #1 merchant, and the unsettling mystery behind his account hack. Melon Merch played many different games casually, but RuneScape took his interest the most. He climbed up the boss ladder of old-school RuneScape like any devoted player would. He joined a massive group of players to hunt down a legendary monster known as the Corporeal Beast. For an average solo player, this boss is an absolute nightmare, a grueling, punishing grind. But when you throw dozens of players into the same room, the beast gets obliterated in seconds. And in this boss encounter, the game doesn't just hand out participation trophies. The loot doesn't get split equally. It awards the drop entirely to the single player who manages to deal the most damage. It was a cutthroat, free-for-all environment where it was quite literally winner takes all. And the Corporeal Beast held one specific holy grail item that every single player in that room was desperate to get their hands on, the Elysian Sigil. This extremely rare item is used to craft a shield with a passive ability that literally reduces incoming damage. In a game where every hit point matters, this makes the Elysian Spirit Shield incredibly powerful, highly sought after, and absurdly expensive. And against all odds, Melon Merch actually got it. In a crowded room full of high-level players, not only did he manage to secure the highest damage output on that specific kill, but he hit the ultimate jackpot. He secured a drop with the probability of less than 1 in 4,000. Because it was a free-for-all, he didn't have to split a single gold piece. And it was a life-changing amount of in-game wealth that catapulted his account's value overnight. But this massive euphoric victory would ultimately serve a darker purpose. It gave Melon Merch a false sense of hope. Because while he had just experienced the absolute highest peak of old-school RuneScape's RNG system, he was about to find out exactly how brutal and unforgiving it can truly be. And although he eventually would go on to become one of the wealthiest RuneScape players of all time, he wouldn't get there without learning some technical skills first. I feel like Neo with the things I've been programming lately. I recently coded a backtesting program to test different trading strategies on the stock exchange based on the last 25 years. And it was a lot of fun, which is why this video is sponsored by BootDev, because learning the basics of coding in a fun and concrete way is what has really helped me understand the projects I've been making with AI recently. AI does the legwork, but BootDev helps teach the fundamentals needed to really understand the code, become an architect of a project, debugging, and more. Plus, it's fun. And you get to learn to code by building real projects. I highly recommend them for anybody wanting to learn to code your own software in a fun way. So go to boot.dev and use code RuneScape Chronicles to get 25% off your entire first year on the annual plan. And thanks to BootDev for sponsoring the channel. In February of 2020, Old School RuneScape released the Nightmare of Ashihama. It was a brand new endgame boss designed specifically for groups of 5 or more. But craving more of the winner-takes-all loot he had gotten with the Elysian Sigil, Melon decided to take the hardest route possible. He fought it entirely alone. To put that into perspective, fighting this boss solo is such a grueling endurance test that simply beating it in under 16 minutes is considered a high-level achievement. Melon didn't just beat it once. He killed the Nightmare over 300 times by himself. That's over 100 hours of intense combat. And his reward? Absolutely nothing. 0 rare drops. Frustrated, he shifted his focus to the Chambers of Xeric, the game's first ever raid. He joined the free-for-all masses, hoping for a repeat of his early game luck. But this time, his bad luck streak continued. Raids took 30 minutes to an hour each, and he watched as other players walked away with the massive drops he was grinding for. Raid after raid, he got nothing. He was getting tired. More raids, more white lights for him, purple lights and rare drops for others. It was extremely demotivating, and killed his passion for making riches through bossing altogether. At this point, most players would either mindlessly continue the grind or quit the game entirely. But Melon had a different idea. If he couldn't replicate the luck he found all those years ago, he was going to take matters into his own hands and do things his own way. His luck was cursed at bosses, so Melon would pivot to something that was much more about skill, the player market. Old school RuneScape features a completely player-driven economy. Every single item is bought and sold at a price dictated purely by supply and demand. And just like the real-world stock market, players can make calculated investments to build massive wealth, a practice the community calls merching. Historically, the game's notoriously wealthy players built their fortunes in one of two ways. The first was the Duel Arena, a highly controversial in-game casino where players gambled billions of gold on raw 50-50 odds. The second was merching. And in the game's early days, massive clan chats were entirely dedicated to market manipulation. Long before modern crypto popularized the pump and dump scheme, RuneScape clans were already perfecting it. Clan leaders would tell thousands of followers to invest in a specific item, promising the price would skyrocket. But in reality, those leaders were the ones quietly dumping their own massive supplies onto their unsuspecting followers at highly inflated prices. But Melon wasn't interested in scamming players. Instead, he treated the game like a legitimate financial analyst, relying entirely on raw data, upcoming developer updates, and extensive research to execute perfectly timed, highly lucrative investments. This wasn't just basic flipping. Flipping is buying an item at a slight dip and selling it immediately for a tiny profit. Melon was playing a much bigger game. In late 2020, he made his first major plays, targeting high-tier weapons like the Elder Maul and Abyssal Bludgeon. He knew the highly popular Nightmare boss made these weapons desired, and he capitalized on the demand. This strategy alone netted him roughly 2 billion gold. But then he noticed another player named Zalor hoarding massive amounts of red spider eggs, a core ingredient for super restore potions, one of the most essential and widely used potions in the entire game. Seeing the sheer scale of his stockpile permanently shifted Melon's mindset. He abandoned quick profits entirely, pivoting to massive, calculated long-term holds. His net worth skyrocketed from 2 billion to 10 billion gold, the fastest money he's ever made. And now he was hooked. His true genius showed with an item called the looting bag. This bag is an important tool used to store extra loot in the wilderness, RuneScape's highly dangerous PvP zone. Historically, this item was strictly untradeable. If you wanted one, you had to farm monsters for it, and if a player killed you, it was gone. However, a game update introduced the looting bag note, finally making this note version of the item tradable on the Grand Exchange. And Melon saw an opportunity. He knew this item would go up in price. There was just one massive roadblock. The game's marketplace had a strict restriction. You could only buy 40 of these notes at a time. While other merchants let this stop them from buying up the supply, Melon found a loophole. He completely bypassed the official marketplace and went straight to the source. He reached out to gold farmers, players who were mass farming PvP minigames for profit to generate in-game emblems. These emblems could be directly converted into looting bag notes. So Melon bought the emblems in bulk directly from the gold farmers, converted them himself, and hoarded the notes. By bypassing the buy limits and holding onto the supply until the time was right, he wasn't just making a small profit like other merchants with the same idea. He had a massive investment that eventually tripled in value. But these early victories were child's play compared to what Melon merch would discover next. In August 2022, Old School RuneScape dropped its highly anticipated third raid, the Tombs of Amasket. Almost immediately, the in-game economy turned upside down. The unbelievably powerful new raid rewards, like the Tunic Shadow, were instantly selling for billions of gold. But while the new items skyrocketed, the old ones crashed into the dirt. The Scythe of Atur was widely considered one of the best melee weapons in the entire game. But it had one fatal flaw. It was completely useless inside the brand new raid. Desperate to afford the shiny new gear, players mass panic sold their scythes. The price utterly collapsed, plummeting from over 1 billion gold down to 400 million. But the weapon hadn't been nerfed. It was still incredibly powerful everywhere else in the game, but the community was entirely blinded by the new raid hype. Melon Merch saw the ultimate opportunity. He stepped in and dropped a staggering 40 billion gold, scooping up a stockpile of these crashed scythes. But that wasn't it. Melon had another trick up his sleeve, using Jagex's very own Grand Exchange tax system. Imagine a RuneScape where every rare weapon or shield ever found stays in the game forever. Eventually, the market becomes flooded, prices tank, and those legendary treasures become worthless junk. To stop this, the Grand Exchange uses a tax and delete system. Every time a player sells an item, the game takes a 2% cut of the gold. This isn't just a fee, it's a war chest used to protect the economy. The game uses that taxed gold to step onto the trading floor as a buyer of rare treasures. Every now and then, the system uses the taxed gold to automatically buy items from a player and permanently deletes it from existence. By literally destroying the item, the game ensures that rare items stay rare and your hard-earned loot keeps its value for years to come. And Melon realized he could use this tax and delete system to his advantage. He didn't just buy scythes when Tombs of Amascut came out. He also noticed something interesting. People weren't doing Nightmare of Ashihama anymore. He saw that Nightmare kill count went to just under 6 per hour on release of Tombs of Amascut. Maud Ash, a developer for RuneScape, often replies on Twitter. So Melon asked him how many of each item is getting sunk through the Grand Exchange tax system. Maud Ash replied, so Melon was able to math out that volatile orbs from Nightmare were getting deleted faster than they were being added. They're basically a discontinued item at this point in time. Melon now had the critical data point needed to execute on the trade. Volatile orbs were being deleted by the Grand Exchange tax at a rate of approximately 7 per day. But with less than 6 kills per hour on the Nightmare, only 1 volatile orb was entering the game per day. The sync rate was double that of other Nightmare orbs, which were being removed at a rate of 3.5 per day. This is a perplexing anomaly, and he saw opportunity. Melon loaded up on volatile orbs. He utilized the public high scoreboards to calculate the total global supply, confirming that his position could pay off in the billions. He knew the market would eventually correct itself, both for the scythes and volatile orbs. But unlike most players who would sell the moment the price ticked up a few million coins, Melon utilized a brilliant, brutally simple strategy. He simply stopped logging in. By stepping away from the game, he removed the temptation entirely. He didn't have to stare at his bank value, and he didn't have to stress over daily market fluctuations for the scythes or the volatile orbs. He forced himself to be patient, and while he was, both scythes and volatile orbs were disappearing through the game's Grand Exchange tax system. A year and a half later, the trap sprang shut. The scythe surged right back to over 1 billion gold. Melon finally logged back in, offloaded his supply, and walked away with over 70 billion gold in pure profit, and more billions on top of that from the volatile orb play. By mastering his own temptation, now he has over 100 billion gold worth of items on his account. He may not be the wealthiest merchant yet, but he's well on his way. His next step towards becoming RuneScape's #1 merchant all boils down to one monumental calculated gamble on a weapon known as the Elder Maul. When old school RuneScape released its very first raid, the Elder Maul was introduced as an unbelievably rare reward. But despite how difficult it was to obtain, the weapon was fundamentally flawed. It was slow, clunky, and aside from a few incredibly niche scenarios, it was practically useless. After nearly a decade of them coming into the game, the price just went lower and lower, crashing all the way down to 10 million gold. But Melon was watching closely. He noticed a wave of frustration building within the community. Players were posting on Reddit and Discord, relentlessly complaining that such a rare item was useless, begging the developers for a buff. Operating purely on the intuition that developers would eventually cave to the pressure, Melon made his most insane play yet. He bought hundreds of them, and his intuition was flawless. The developers unexpectedly announced a massive rework. The Elder Maul was receiving a brand new special attack that would officially make it the absolute best defense reducing weapon in the entire game. It's mathematically only 5% better than the next best option, the Dragon Warhammer. But in old school RuneScape's endgame, a 5% advantage changes everything. Basically overnight, the Elder Maul's price skyrocketed from 10 million gold to a staggering 160 million. Melon didn't strike gold, he made his own luck, and he broke the entire scale. His net worth multiplied, making him hundreds of billions of gold. With a single investment, he had officially cemented himself as arguably the greatest merchant in RuneScape history. But the craziest part? He wasn't doing this for fame or the ultimate flex. He didn't brag. He just liked solving the puzzle. He now called himself Melon Merch in the community, and became well known. In fact, he helped other people learn his strategies and build their own cash piles. A lot of them got to the 50 bill to 100 bill range. To him, the money and being number one was just the cherry on top. At his absolute peak, Melon's total wealth, quietly scattered across multiple hidden accounts, surpassed 400 billion gold. But let's put that into real life terms. Players can legally purchase gold directly from the developers using bonds, in-game membership tokens that can be traded for gold coins. At roughly 64 cents per million gold, matching Melon's bank account through legitimate means would cost $256,000 US. However, right at the absolute peak of his dominance, tragedy was waiting, and Melon was about to watch the empire he had spent years building crumble away. One day, Melon Merch logged into his account with the same email and password he had always used, but his gear was taken off. His inventory was empty. He checks his bank, and it's cleaned out. He'd clearly been hacked. He told people on Discord what happened, and suggested they buy up the stock of his items that were likely to be insta-sold on the Grand Exchange. He made a Reddit post. Thousands of players saw it. He wanted to get Jagex's attention, because after all, this account had most of his major merchanting items on it. Prayer scrolls, Elder Mauls, hundreds of Sang staffs, and more. All of that was gone. The damage from the hack, 150 billion GP, the biggest hack in RuneScape history. And he did get Jagex's attention, but they couldn't help him. And this sent Melon in a frenzy. He has collections on other accounts too, still worth around 80 billion GP. Anxiety takes over his mind. Did those accounts get hacked too? What about his crypto wallets on his PC? Because he's never logged into this account from another computer, never used the email or password anywhere else in his life. He frantically scans his PC hard drive for any viruses, any vulnerabilities that could have led to this hack. But nothing turns up. And it turns out his other RuneScape accounts are untouched. His crypto wallets are 100% secure. How could this one account, his main merchanting account, have been hacked, but nothing else was affected? He's shocked and concerned something fishy is going on. The hacker, whoever he is, was so frantic to liquidate Melon Merch's account that he didn't even take some of the collections. Surprisingly, the hacker left 200 million maple logs and over 10 million gold ore that Melon Merch was collecting. Combined, these collections are worth around 5 billion GP. So at least he gets to keep these collections. But the same can't be said for the hacked items. Grand Exchange tracker sites show a price decline for items he had collected, like the Elder Maul. Over the next few weeks, the price of the Elder Maul crashes to its lowest ever price since it was buffed. Black market gold buyers don't want 150 billion gold at once, because Jagex could ban all their accounts at any point for real-world trade. Instead, Melon Merch was told the hacker traded some of the collections in exchange for Third Age gear to quickly offload the items, and then sold the Third Age gear to other merchers at a loss. Merchers in the community even had the RSN of the person who had the items. The culprit is a throwaway account, level 40 or so, which is now banned. Jagex is likely to have flagged such a huge wealth transfer and stopped the hacker before he could even sell 1/3 of the haul to third-party sites. If so, that means about 100 billion gold of wealth was wiped out with one account ban. Melon Merch still has around 80 billion gold of items on other accounts. But after the hack, he didn't want to rebuild. The sickening reality of putting in all that effort just to risk having it stolen again was too much to stomach. He walked away from old school RuneScape entirely, pivoting his time and energy into real-world crypto, other games, spending time with friends and family, and moving on with his life. Melon Merch's devastating downfall leaves the community with two takeaways. First, sometimes you make your own luck. Melon Merch started as a frustrated boss killer, discouraged by his dry streaks, but he decided to learn some skills and use his resources to build the biggest merchanting empire in RuneScape history. And the second lesson comes straight from the Merchant King himself. Drop the ego and never get greedy. If you secure a massive profit, take it and walk away. Don't blindly sit on a crashing investment hoping for a miracle. Look at the data. Ask yourself if an item actually has realistic future use cases, and make rational, emotionless decisions. Because at the end of the day, whether you're fighting bosses or playing the market, it is all just a game. The story of Melon Merch features the highest highs and lowest lows one can experience in an MMO. He experienced the highest peaks of lucky RNG, endured the most soul-crushing dry streaks, and ultimately decided to bypass the intended game mechanics entirely to build an empire most players couldn't even fathom. But in the end, it wasn't a punishing raid boss or a massive market crash that took him down. It was a single devastating hack, the mystery of which still goes unsolved to this day. His journey serves as a brutal reminder that in the unforgiving world of RuneScape, your greatest enemy isn't always inside the game. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of the biggest merchanting empire ever built, make sure to like the video and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode of RuneScape Chronicles. Also, check out our documentary about Evanabi, RuneScape's fastest ever player. And let me know down in the comments which modern day player you'd like us to cover next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.